In this video, we are going to learn how to use the Nmap CLI tool to perform network scans and look for various devices inside the network and try to figure out what services they are running or what operating system they have. I have a Ubuntu machine with me which is pre-installed with the Nmap tool. And if you want to look at the steps for installations for Debian based Linux, it's apt install Nmap. Yeah, it's already installed. And if you are looking for the steps or installation based on your operating system, you can actually check this thing out. You can visit nmap.org and follow the download section and can look at the steps for installation based on your operating system. Windows also has a utility called as Nmap, which is pretty much Nmap covered with a GUI interface. Now coming back, let's say I want to look at the version of Nmap. So this is the command and it's running the latest version 7.7. Now before we run these scans, it's important to understand how we use these CLI tools or how we configure these scans or what kind of scans we want to run. So there are a bunch of options available to us that we can configure while running these scans. Let me jump on to the page over here. I'll drop in the links to these pages in the video description. So there are a bunch of command line flags or options available to us that lets us configure these scans, and the important one are the port scanning methods, and there are a bunch of options available to determine what kind of scan you want to run based on how Nmap actually performs that scan in the background. I'll not go in detail with all of these. You can just go through and have a read about how Nmap perform these kind of scans. Next is the port selection method. Let's say you want to run a scan on one single port or maybe a range of ports, you can actually configure it. The next is the timing related options, which lets you configure how fast or slow you want to run a scan or how much network traffic you want to generate. So this is really important actually when inside a network there are some firewalls or IDS devices that actually figure out that some device is trying to perform some network scans. So this lets you configure how stealthily you want to run those scans. And the last is the output format and verbosity. So you can increase the verbose levels to figure out what are the tasks in the background that this tool is running, and you can actually save the output as well to a file just to save these scan results. Now let's get back to the machine. This machine is part of a network, and if I want to look at the IP address, this is the IP address of this machine. And now let's say I want to run the scan on the devices inside this subnet. So I'll use the command nmap and configure the TCP connect scan over here, and let's say I just want to give the port range as 1 to 1024 and the network subnet as, so you see, so these are the different options that I've configured followed by where I want the scan, and I'm right now running it on a network subnet, or if you want you can run it on a single IP address or maybe a host name. Now once again, I actually want to configure one more option. Let's increase the verbosity level to see what's happening in the background. Now that the scan has started, let's wait for the scan to get complete and see what results we have. Alright, the scan has completed in 17.04 seconds and it has scanned 256 IP address and figured out that there are 5 hosts that are up, and this is some stats based on the network traffic. Now if I go up, I can see the details of the scan results, and I can see that these are the devices that are currently up in this network. Okay, fine. Now let's say that's okay. I figured out that there are some devices and these are the host names, but over here there is some interesting information which is quite useful for hackers. Now I see that this device is running a service called SSH. Okay, so I can probably test for any SSH based vulnerabilities and maybe try to gain access into this device or test for the security. Again, similarly, this device also has SSH service, and this device seems to have one more service along with SSH, which is an FTP service. Okay, let's take one more example, and this time what we are going to do is we're going to increase the number of ports and see if we find much information for, let's say, this host. And in this example we'll increase the verbosity level to another level. Okay, and I can see this time it scanned 4000 ports in pretty much very less than a second. And this time I have discovered one more service which is running on port 3389. It should be MySQL server. Yeah. Now that we saw that we can use the Nmap CLI tool to discover different devices, and also we can run port based scans to identify what kind of services are running. Now let us try and run the scan on any machine which is outside this network, let's say on a public network. And for this purpose I have my own website over here on which I'm going to run a Nmap scan. So the scan would be against the web server which is hosting that website. So let's see what information we can gather from this scan. So let's again we run the TCP scan for a port range of 1 to, let's say, 2500 to this host. Let's increase the verbosity level over here. Okay, I think I didn't give the option correctly. Yeah, it should work now. So you can see this particular website of mine is running on this IP address, and as of now it has figured out that it's a web server running on port 443, and it has an SSH service as well. And what interesting thing is that there is some other service which is running on some other port, and it's not completely able to identify what kind of service it is. Okay, no issues. So but the point over here is to find out what are the various open ports and what can be the different services running on those devices. Now in the last section of this lab, let us look at one interesting option of Nmap, which is -o. And with this option, Nmap will try to determine what operating system is running on this particular web server. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so now Nmap has a list of guesses based on certain patterns that it matches, and we have a close proximity to what kind of operating system this machine has. Again, these informations are really necessary, or I would say important, for a hacker who's trying to break into these systems, because at this step he wants to collect as much information he can and later on use this information into performing various kinds of attacks or try to exploit some old bug or vulnerabilities. Now with this we are done with the demo, and in case if you want to learn the Nmap tool for Windows, and do check out my video on Nmap with Windows. And before we jump to the end of the video, it's always advisable to scan a network that you have or you own, kind of you have the permissions to scan, right? And because scanning devices on the public internet without the owner's consent is considered as an act of hacking, and it can be unethical depending on the purpose or the intent of the scan. So before you run any scan, make sure you have the correct permissions. I hope you liked the video. Do hit the like button and drop in your comments. Till then, keep hacking, stay safe, stay secure. Hacker TV signing off. See you again.